Hi Food 52, my name is Isabel Cos and today I'm gonna show you how to make a eucalyptus key lime cake. Key lime cake is one of the first desserts I learned to make, and I love tres leches cake just as much. So this recipe is a combination, a hybrid of those two desserts. So let's start with it. First, I have a bain-marie. We're gonna start by melting our white chocolate. I know some people hate white chocolate, but sometimes it's just the brand. If you find like a really good brand for white chocolate, it's delicious. And it has that flavor of cocoa butter and condensed milk that comes on key lime pie. That's why I wanted to add the white chocolate. So don't be afraid. Look for a good brand white chocolate and you're gonna love it. So we have white chocolate and we have butter. And we're gonna melt this slowly. And while this melts, we're also gonna start prepping our pan. I have a bundt cake pan, and I have a little bit of melted butter. We wanna brush all our pan, everywhere. The first part of the recipe, it's melting our white chocolate and butter together. We have two fats, we're gonna slowly melt it over a bain-marie. Let's lower a little of this heat, just so it's not steaming. So we're gonna melt this together. I know some people is afraid of white chocolate, but in my experience, it just depends of the brand of white chocolate you use. When you have a good quality white chocolate, it's delicious. It has that cocoa butter flavor, and that reminds me of condensed milk without having to use condensed milk. So don't be afraid. So I finish buttering all my pan everywhere, make sure that it gets every corner, and we're gonna add some sugar to dust it. You don't need that much, you just need to make sure to get in every part. Yes! You can always use this sugar later, you know? It's not dirty sugar, it's sugar that you can definitely reuse. And if you miss a spot, you're gonna be able to see it because it's where the butter is not gonna stick. I'm dusting it on sugar so the cake doesn't stick. The cake has fat, has eggs, has flour, and instead of adding paper to the bottom, because on a bundt cake it's very hard to get parchment paper, we're gonna coat it with sugar and butter. And also the sugar creates a little layer outside that is delicious. So let's check our white chocolate. It's completely melted. It might look that it's not bind together, but don't worry, they're both fats. They're gonna incorporate together. So we're gonna whip our egg yolks. It's 5 pieces with a little bit of sugar, lime zest. Make sure your cream cheese is room temperature just so it doesn't heat your whisk of your mixer that fast. And we're gonna bring it to the mixer. I'm gonna use a whisk attachment. We wanna incorporate air on the egg yolks as much as we can. Let's lock this up. Ooh. So let's stop it and see how's it going. I just wanna make sure to clear the sides and get everything inside. Boom. Okay, let's stop here. My egg yolks have already got to ribbon stage. They're aerated. I'm gonna mix all my ingredients in the bowl. Our second step is to mix our egg whites. Let's add them to the mixer, and we're gonna add the sugar little by little. So when we whip egg whites, we wanna start slow and creating a little bit of foam. Egg whites are mostly water. It's 90% water and 10% protein. So you need those proteins to break apart so you can finally start adding the sugar, and the sugar will help with the glossy and will help with stability. Okay, so now we can see some bubbles. We're gonna start incorporating our sugar. Like a rain, like a soft falling snow. There you go. I'm using different bowls for whipping. If you only have one bowl at home, make sure to wash it in between. You don't want any fat touching your egg whites because your egg whites will deflate and they're not gonna rise evenly. And we're gonna bring these to soft peak. So when you see this dot, that's when you wanna stop. It's a little before it's a meringue, you know? So I have my chocolate that I already melted. I just wanna mix it to make sure it's all mixed together. This is gonna be the fatter cake, so it's what's gonna keep it moist. And let's add lime juice to our fats. We're gonna incorporate the flour and egg whites in 3 parts. So start with flour, finish with flour. It's just a little bit of flour for this recipe. You just need the flour to hold everything together. You can use gluten-free flour if you have a gluten aversion, and it works perfectly. Any brand. I've tried it with different brands of gluten-free, and they all work really good. So we start with flour. We go in 1/3 of our egg yolks. You just want to fold. You don't want your egg whites to fall apart. But I always said the first fold of egg whites is the one you can go a little rougher on. It's the one you want to mix those fats and all those proteins together. So once that's really well incorporated, the next one can go softer and lighter. So this one, don't be afraid to get in and then mix it well. This recipe came from a variation of a recipe in Mexico that we have. It's called Carlota. Carlota is the name of a woman. It sounds like a very elegant woman. And I can give you the recipe so fast. It's equal amounts condensed milk to lime juice, so it curdles together. And we layer on pans with Maria-style cookies. Maria-style cookies and the condensed milk lime mixture, and we freeze it, cut it, and eat it. That was my first introduction to pastries and how I fell in love with pastries. So this cake, I wanted it to taste like that. That's why I incorporated the white chocolate to it, because I think it has a very similar flavor to it. So last part of flour, last part of egg whites. And this part you just want to do very lightly, treat it delicate. And make sure to get to the bottom, because sometimes at the bottom you're still gonna find some egg yolks that haven't get mixed or incorporated all the way. There you go. So for this recipe, we're gonna bake it on a bain-marie. We have eggs, and we don't want our eggs to reach a higher temperature. I also have my oven preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna place it in my bundt cake. I'm gonna place all my mixture inside of my bundt cake that we previously buttered and sugared. And this is where the eucalyptus comes to play. If you eat eucalyptus raw, it can be a little bad for you and your stomach, but you can steam it or you can cook it, and then it's fine. This recipe of eucalyptus came up with my friend Josh. We were trying to create a cheesecake that tasted like eucalyptus, and we couldn't come up with the right way. We didn't want to use an oil, so we went with the most natural way. Put it on the water when you're doing it, and all that smell of eucalyptus is gonna get to the oven, and it's gonna infuse your cake while it's baking. And I'm gonna use the water that I had for melting my chocolate, that it's already hot. So I'm gonna add this to the pan. And you wanna go halfway. If during the baking your water starts going down, you can always add a little more. I also recommend always put it on your pan or put it on the oven so it's easier to carry and take and you don't burn yourself. And try to add hot water, because your oven is hot. If you add cold water, by the time your cold water reaches the temperature of your oven, you're gonna lose 10 minutes of baking. And if you are aiming for a 30-minute bake, now you have to consider a 10-minute extra bake. So always add hot water to your mixture. So while my cake is in the oven, our next step is gonna make our Swiss meringue. That's what we're gonna cover all the cake on. We need a bain-marie. This is boiling, I'm gonna lower just the heat a little bit. Let's lower it to 7. And on our bowl, we're gonna place egg whites and sugar, and we're gonna start whipping. When you're making Swiss meringue, egg whites should reach 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That's that happy temperature where sugar has already dissolved into the water of the egg whites, when you're starting to break the proteins of your eggs, and before your eggs start cooking. You don't want cooked eggs for flavor and because they are not gonna whip. My egg whites are starting to change color. When I touch, it's not hot, but it's starting to get warm, and I can tell visually that my sugar has dissolved into the sugar. So let's take these egg whites apart. And a trick I like don't get crazy. A trick I like for making meringue, because there might be fat on your mixing bowl, grab a piece of lime, cut it, and spread the lime around it. The lime will break any fat cells that are still on the walls of your mixer. It will just make your meringue whip more evenly. So this, place it all on the mixer. It is very hard to over whip a meringue, so you want to stop when you know you're getting hard peaks, your meringue looks glossy. At this point, I'm gonna add the juice of half a lime. This is good to make it more stable, and it's good for flavor. If you have citric acid, you can add 2, you can add lemon, but because we're doing key lime, stay with lime. Perfect. So we're ready here. You see how it went from being like a soft peak to be a hard peak? This is what we want. So we're gonna stop here, and our meringue is ready. It's cake time, guys. So my cake, it's baked for 45 minutes. After I let it cool down, I took it off the water, I let it cool down, and I keep it on the fridge for around an hour. There's fat on it, so we want all those fats to crystallize on the cake, so we can keep like a nice sponge, like a soft sponge, but like a really good moist cake. It's time for flip. So best part is the whole kitchen right now, it smells like eucalyptus. That's why I love this recipe. So we're gonna flip it. Because our mold has sugar and butter, it's gonna be very easy to pop. And here comes the moment of truth. Is it gonna pop? Let's heat it up. It's time to pray to whoever you pray. No, if it doesn't pop, you can always warm it up a little with your torch, because you have sugar, you have fat, it's gonna come down. Think about it like a caramel. So a little bit of fire, it's gonna melt the top of the sugar, and we'll just give it like a last pop, and time to reveal our cake. Look at that. It smells like eucalyptus. It's time for decorate our cake. I have piping bag. I'm using recyclable piping bags. This one's made out of cornstarch. It's biodegradable. It's gonna fall apart. So let's put our meringue inside our piping bag. And don't feel bad about covering a bundt cake shape that it's already gorgeous, because then you're gonna get meringue in different layers that when you cut it, some parts are gonna have an extra thick layer and some parts are gonna have a thinner layer. So it's never gonna feel like a super sweet cake. It's gonna feel just like the right amount of meringue. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. You can choose how much meringue you like. I like a lot of meringue, so. And it's not a very sweet meringue, that you're never gonna feel that it's super rich on your palate. And don't forget about the key lime peaks, the traditional ones that just go everywhere and start pulling crazy shapes. It's torch time. Don't forget the middle. It's like your personal fire at home. Last part of this cake, we're gonna zest some lime on it. Make sure when you zest, try to reach all the parts of the lime because you don't wanna get the white part off it. That part is a little bitter. So just go upside down or whatever way you think you're gonna keep track of it. There you go. I love this. The beauty of this cake, because we cook not covered, you're gonna create a shell at the bottom that will remind you that texture of key lime pie, and then the softness of a cake and the richness of the tart and the meringue. Let's try it. It's pretty good. If you like pie, but you like cake, this is the hybrid of them both. I hope you enjoy watching this video. I cannot wait to see what you guys bake. You can find the recipe at Food 52 and see you next time. Yeah.